Perfect. Thank you very much. So, as Curtis says, I'm Chief Operating Officer at Carwow, and it's great to have a room as full as it is today with so many dealers, so many clients and potential clients. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about dealer profitability in the digital age. I know a lot of you will be sitting there thinking, Carwow profitability, really? I'd like to bust a couple of myths, give you a couple of ideas as how some of our dealers are actually finding Carwow to be an incredibly profitable channel for new and increasingly for used car sales as well. Before I do that, I'll just leave that slide on the screen for a second or two, but I'd like to tell you a little story. About 2 years ago, I received a call from a headhunter saying, would you like to come and be Chief Operating Officer for Carwow? Now, at the time, I was running Gumtree Motors, been running eBay Motors for the previous 5 or 6 years. Big corporate job, well remunerated, nice and secure. I thought, go and join a startup. Has some appeal for sure, and Carwow's a great business. I have a lot of time for it. But really, is this something that's going to survive? Is this something that's actually got legs? And I did an awful lot of work on due diligence of my own to assess, is this a sensible decision for somebody in my situation? Is this something that's actually going to survive? Is this something that's going to persist? And my main concern was, is this just a race to the bottom? Is this business just basically about sell the car for as cheap as you possibly can, make absolutely zero margin, in many cases make negative margin on that sale, sell lots and lots of volume, hit your target, and then turn it off? That was my concern. And it's a concern that I know is shared by a number of people in the industry. So I did a lot of due diligence, as I say. I went to speak to quite a few people. I spoke to a lot of MDs of groups. I spoke to a lot of sales managers, dealer principals. I spoke to a lot of other people in various sort of service-related parts of the industry as well. And I heard a mixture of stories. I heard some people saying, don't really know that much about Carwow, doesn't really sound like the sort of thing for me. Fine. I also heard, and I was quite surprised to hear, a number of DPs say to me, and group MDs say to me, actually, you know what? Carwow is a very, very good channel for us. We make decent, profitable sales. It's great. And that gave me a lot of confidence. So I was speaking to James Hine, the founder of Carwow, at some length. He gave me a slide very like the one that I've got on the slide on the screen right now, which basically breaks down sales on Carwow. Who is buying cars on Carwow? The key stat for me is the one in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Only a quarter of people buying a car on Carwow actually buy from the cheapest dealer. It's not about buying at the very, very lowest price. It's about having confidence that the price that's being quoted is reasonable. People will say, well, okay, I could go and buy the car in Aberdeen for £300, £400, £500, even £1,000 less than Jim Reed there. Once you're on Carwow, we'll have a chat. You can go and buy the car in Aberdeen for £500 less, but I live in Penzance, and I'm quite happy doing a deal with my local dealer. I accept the fact that I'm paying £500, £1,000 more for the privilege of doing the deal locally. You can see the majority of people actually buy from the closest dealer. This was the slide that convinced me as if you like, a digital automotive guy that actually Carwow had something about it. Carwow had some legs that goes beyond just giving consumers the ultimate lowest price. And since I joined Carwow, we've done a lot of work to sort of dig into that in a little bit more detail, in fact, an awful lot more detail, to start to understand actually what's going on here and what allows many of our dealers to do very, very profitable business on Carwow itself. So over the course of the next 10 minutes or so, I'm conscious that I'm the only thing keeping you away from the coffee and tea, which hopefully has been replenished in the last couple of hours. The next 10 minutes or so, just give you a quick highlight or quick insight into a couple of those data points. A lot of the upside in digital in general, and Carwow in particular, comes from efficiency. These two businesses, business on the left-hand side, one you'll know very well, Amazon. Amazon Prime exists to basically make it so easy to use Amazon that you would not use anything else. As a consumer, it takes the barriers, the frustrations in the process of buying an item out of the equation. You know if you buy it through Amazon Prime, it will be on your doorstep first thing the following morning, if not at some stage that afternoon. You don't have to worry about it. It's super, super easy. As a result, people on Amazon Prime spend on average twice as much as customers spend on Amazon in general because it's so easy. It's taking the friction out of the process. Same with contactless payments. Contactless was I think it's been going for about 5 years or thereabouts. Almost all of us, I'm sure, have got contactless facilities on at least almost all of our debit and credit cards today. You walk into a shop, coffee shops and things like that, particularly the case. You walk up, beep, job done, paid for the coffee, paid for the croissant, paid for whatever else it is that you've decided to add on to the purchase. People paying with contactless spend on average 30% more than people paying with a traditional chip and PIN in retailers in general. And bearing in mind that the cap on contactless, unless you're using Apple Pay, is £30 per transaction, it tells you that's skewed towards lower end transactions. It's skewed towards the coffee shops and things like this. So Pret-a-Manger, Starbucks, etc. are winning in the fact that people are spending more in their coffee shops. They're adding the croissants, etc., partly because you don't have that moment where you sit there and go, oh my goodness, it's £7.60 for 2 coffees and a croissant, really? You don't have that. You just beep, 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 super easy. Secondly, they're winning because actually one of the biggest drags of profitability in a company like Starbucks is their ability to get the queues down. You end up with a queue, people don't stand in the queue, they don't want to get to the front, and if they do get to the front, they have extra time to deal with the actual coffee. Making the coffee is one thing. Generally speaking, coffee shops are pretty good at that. They have a team of people doing that, and another team of people actually serving the customers at the till. But when you actually enter the code, it adds time. And if you're a business like Starbucks or Pret, the throughput is such that if you can save there, you bring the queues down, you bring your overall volume of sales right up, and that's exactly what's happening. So the biggest upside for a coffee shop is in the ability to get people through the tills more quickly with contactless payments. So, general point being made there is that if you take friction out of a process through digital or other means, but clearly the trends in the market right now are around digital, people will do more, they'll spend more, and ultimately profit follows suit. And I've got a couple of points that are more pertinent to the car industry just here. The interesting thing for me, and this is ASE data, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. The interesting thing for the car industry, and it touches on some of the things that Carl was speaking around earlier on around productivity, is that actually, far from becoming more efficient, the car industry right now, from a sales perspective, is becoming less efficient. This is a rolling 12-month view of sales per salesperson in the industry from September 2014 through to the September just gone. And even, okay, so this September we're in a somewhat depressed market, but in September 2016 things were looking very, very strong. Even then, there are more salespeople selling fewer cars than had been the case a couple of years previously, and that trend's continued. And if you split that into sales of new and used, it's even more interesting. You see the average number of new car sales per salesperson declining significantly from 106 new cars per year in September 2014 for the previous 12 months, down to just 68 in the September just gone. Used car sales, Nick King will be pleased to see, holding fairly steady. This is franchise dealers, I should point out. This is the 4,500 franchise dealers in the UK. This doesn't look at the independents. So the car industry hasn't yet worked out how to get more efficiency into the equation. This is a study that we've done recently with a series of Carwow dealerships who've really, if you like, embraced Carwow, embraced digital, and have taken a different approach to dealing with selling new cars through digital means. And they're realizing huge efficiencies as a result. So on the left-hand side there, you've got that 68 new cars per salesperson statistic that we had on the previous page. That's the market average. Carwow, this is an average of dealerships who are doing a good job, 170 new car sales per salesperson. So 2.5 times more new car sales per head. And what's more, they're being paid less money too. This isn't about getting rid of people. This is about reconfiguring the way that they're compensated in many cases. But it's rather than a, say, 15K base and then aiming for a 25,000 variable upside on car sales, it's much more like a £25,000 base. And then a variable upside, which, yes, in some cases might be associated with absolute volume of sales, but in many cases is linked to the service quality that they're providing the customer. And as a result, these people are looking after customers whose inquiries come in at 10 o'clock in the evening. It's on their phone, they're watching television, it takes them 2 minutes to respond. Customer gets a great experience and is far more inclined to then do business with that dealership than the one that they have to wait for 2 days for someone to get back to them. So this is obviously an incredibly simplistic view, but it's testament to the fact that if embraced properly, digital sales, and Carwow in particular, but it doesn't just apply to Carwow, digital sales can provide a far more efficient way of selling than the traditional model. And it's an opportunity for the industry to start to unlock not just sort of sales upside, but also cost opportunities as well. Now, most of you, I'm sure, are aware, Carwow customers, digital customers in general, incredibly aware of what they want. They've done a huge amount of research. They're very, very qualified when it comes to that point at which they reach out to a dealership. This is just some examples from Carwow itself. We have all the editorial content. We have video. I think we do, video views. I think we've had about 18-point-something million in the last 30 days, people watching Carwow car reviews. That's more than, well, I'm going to boast now, it's more than everybody else in the industry put together. It's more than what Auto Trader, Car Buyer, et cetera. There's a huge level of interest among consumers for what ultimately are pretty dull car reviews. How much stuff can I fit in the boot of a Volkswagen Golf? Is there enough leg room in the back to be able to fit the baby seat behind me when I put the driver's seat in the position for a six-foot driver? This is not petrol head content. I speak as a petrol head. So consumers come to Carwow, come to dealers these days through digital means and otherwise, better informed than ever before. And they're informed not just about the product that they want, but they're also, thanks to Carwow, informed about the price that they should pay. And that makes them incredibly open to add-on sales. And this is something that, this is some data that a company called OC&C Strategy Consultants pulled together for us. Some of you may be familiar with them. Those of you who are not, they're a big company who do a lot of work on behalf of the financial sector, and they were employed by a company who invested in Carwow earlier this year to start to understand the economics of a Carwow sale. And this was based on a sample, an anonymous sample of thousands and thousands of new car sales that happen both on and off Carwow. And it corresponds and it vindicates what a lot of our dealers are telling us. Gap insurance sales, 69% higher on Carwow sales than on general sales in the market. Optional extras, consumers are over a third more likely to add optional extras onto a car when they're buying on Carwow versus market general. A third more likely to put an extended warranty on, 15% more likely to add a servicing package, etc. These are high-margin products. These are high-margin opportunities. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that confidence that the consumer has in the price. They have a price in mind. They haven't had to haggle. This is the price I'm paying. I have another notional £1,000, £1,500 to play with. It makes sense to spend £500 on gap insurance. It makes sense to spend £500 on paint protection, etc., etc. The data I haven't got on here, they also looked at the average margin on the sale. So the average margin on the sale on Carwow versus the average margin on the sale in the market in general. The number they came out with was just over 1%. 1% difference in the average selling price on Carwow versus the average discount on Carwow, the average discount given to a walk-in customer, which, again, very, very much smaller than some of the numbers that people perhaps assume. And once you start looking at the upside that comes from some of the add-on products, in many cases, it more than compensates, and in almost every case, it compensates for it. That's not to say that every dealer does a great job of this. It's not the case that every dealer does a great job of this. There is a skill to this, just as Carl was talking about earlier on around the need to be able to deal with digital leads in a slightly different way to perhaps the way that leads have been treated historically. It's not the case that customers will just walk in and say, here's my money, please, I'd like to buy gap insurance, I'd like to buy all the rest of it. But if you know at the right stage at which to pitch that sale, it's the first sale that the customers receive. They haven't had to spend 2 hours haggling over the last 15 pence on a PCP monthly agreement. This is the first sale they had. They're very, very open to these sorts of products. So we're very happy to talk to any of them in the room about how you can optimize your processes and operations to take advantage of this, but this was a big one for me. And the final point for me, earlier this year, I'm thinking, losing track of time, 2017 we're still in. Yeah, earlier this year we launched what we call the in-stock car feature. So this is basically helping consumers to find the closest match to the car that they've configured on Carwow that's available for immediate delivery. Because ultimately consumers want availability of stock, they want instant gratification, they don't really want to wait. A couple of interesting things coming out from that. Firstly, people will travel more than twice as far to buy a car that's immediately available. That comes out to something like 80 miles on Carwow at the moment. They'll travel 80 miles to buy a car that's available today versus one that they need to wait for factory order 3 months or whatever the average time is. And secondly, and perhaps most interestingly, they will pay significantly more. This is just a sample of some Nissan models from the last few months that we've seen going through sales happening, both factory orders and stock cars. And in each case, people are paying, in some cases, hundreds, in a few cases, thousands of pounds more to buy the car from stock that's immediately available than they would have paid had they ordered that car directly from a factory order. So there's opportunities to sell to a wider range of customers, because customers are inclined to say, well, I'll travel for that, obviously, but you'll also be able to realise some additional margin on those sales as well. Very interesting for me. So the summary from my side, there's opportunities in digital to reduce friction, to increase consumer willingness to engage and to buy, to realise operating efficiencies by selling in an efficient way, leveraging digital channels. Get your processes right to sell add-ons to digital leads, because they're very much open to it. And secondly, to look at the opportunities that stock on Carwow can provide. We have a great way of matching leads, consumers with available cars. And again, there's huge amounts of money in it from that.